I'm
Okay.
fine, Janine, thank you.
I think we're good. Okay, we're at the last recommendation now, which is on the SRO program at Los Altos High School. And the recommendation is to eliminate the SRO program at Los Altos High School. And the city encourage MVLA to investigate and implement other non-police models to foster overall student well-being and create a safe and equitable environment.
Before we move forward onto that item, I just want to make a comment that the reason why I voted what I did is because I'm getting information or comments from members of Vanguard calling me racist now. So I don't appreciate it. And I would like to state that I did it because I lacked information, and there are other reasons why I took the position that I have. I'm making this known public because if anything were to occur to me or my family, I'm making it known that I voted the way I did, and I'm representing my concerns because of lack of information and because I had concerns moving forward. So that said, I just want to protect myself and protect my family. Thank you. Now we can move on.
Sorry to hear that, Lynette.
Yeah,
I
no,
am too.
That's unacceptable.
right.
That is really unacceptable.
No one should be threatening anyone based on this, and yeah, that's not okay. And thank
So
you
if
for
people are concerned about their voicing concerns. If you're concerned about voicing concerns because of how you're treated, I am very concerned about how I'm being treated as well. So thank you.
thank you for bringing that up, Lynette.
But
Okay, now if we can we
Yeah,
go to?
I just want to say something, Lynette, if those were sent by emails, I think you should send them on to the city manager or the police chief. That would be important to have those emails sent on. Thank you.
So, Mayor, can I make a couple of comments before we jump into accepting this or not accepting this? And one thing is, this one to me is this whole thing in terms of the SRO is kind of a little bit I feel really emotional about this one. So one thing I wanted to say is there is something that really kind of disappointed me in all of this, or maybe I should even go farther and say it's disturbing. And that is, we have, I understand the students being concerned and not comfortable providing feedback and all. Unfortunately, and I've been left with a very strong impression that teachers at a school who have expressed themselves tonight, expressed themselves at the town hall and such, I wonder, what are they doing with this information? Okay, because I think we have in our society and such an obligation to report. If somebody came to school with black bruises on them, the teachers have an obligation to report that in terms of potential child abuse, right? If you're using strong words, and we're getting some strong words from teachers and such, I just, that's disturbing to me. And I have to say that because I'm sure if some of these people are still on here, I really would ask that you think about your role first and foremost as an educator and what your obligation is. And then secondly, how you might view in terms of being the advocate for change and such, okay? Because those are two separate things, and I don't let one cloud the other. The other thing is, it's been painfully obvious to me with work that's been done that we really don't have a clear purpose of what the SRO function is, okay? And I'm going to try and use the term function because I don't believe in some of what we're talking about, it's about individuals who are performing the roles who don't have a clear understanding of what the role is. And while there might be reason to get rid of it because of maybe this lack of understanding and such, when we move forward, and one of the messages that I really think I'd like that the school district to end up with the superintendent and such, is I think this whole discussion and all of this activism and trying to give voice to stuff, I think this is really the time for school administration to really step back, and let's not have a debate about SRO and not have an SRO. I think where they really need to do it, get back up to the 35,000 foot elevation and say, what are the services that are needed on our campuses? Okay. And what are those things? And then how do you best provision those services? Okay. So if you take that approach, I would hope that the city, if there was a really good understanding of what we needed and the best body to provide it is through a police presence or a police officer, that we are not shutting the door to that. But the whole idea that we don't have a clear thing, we don't understand, and we can't even differentiate because everything's kind of blended between what is directed in terms of someone, an officer fulfilling their role as an SRO versus an officer filling a role as I've been called to a situation, right? And when I heard the testimony, in both contexts, it's a blending of the two. And so I would hope that we're going to remain open if there is an actual role that can be articulated, and that we would entertain that and we would look at trying to put something more formal in place, because I think what was there has aged out. The other thing is, I would like, I can support the concept of informing them that unless we have some other type of engagement, that we could consider, that we are looking at, dropping this out, but we're a service organization, okay? We service our community, and what I'm having a hard time with is there's the administration that believes there is a role. And so, you know what, if they want to sit there and figure out and make, help us understand what that role is, I think this needs to be resolved before the start of the next school year. Right now, the issue is not quite as prominent because most of the activity and education is being done because of COVID from home and such. But I think there needs to be a hard time frame by which we can figure out, is there a role until we get a clarification and a better understanding. As it's currently operating, I think that's what we definitely need to cease doing. So I support that, but again, I just look at in a broader context for me. That's my initial thought.
Nisa, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. And Councilmember Bruins, I agree with so much of what you're saying, and it reflects a lot of the discussion at the task force, where you use the word function, but the task force basically, and you saw that in the presentation by Ms. Rashid, that it was clearly demonstrated that whatever the goals or the functions of the SRO program were, they're not being met. And so that's one of the reasons why I support the recommendation. I look at the recommendation in two parts. There's the first part that says eliminate the SRO program, and then the second part that talks about what happens next. And I actually jotted down wording, and I think it aligns with what you're suggesting, which I would reword it to say direct staff to inform the school district that we're ready to work with them in developing an alternative to the current SRO program. So it's not just saying, we're eliminating the program by MVLA, these are our kids, these are our students. And so I definitely want us to be part of that discussion, to the extent MVLA still wants the city to be part of that discussion about what this alternate program to the current SRO program looks like. But for the reasons you have stated, and also, we heard members of the public comment that, it's a small fraction of our school community that's being negatively impacted. And I will just say, even if there are really only 10 students, hypothetically, we know that's not the case. But hypothetically, even if it was just 10 students being negatively impacted, as leaders in this community, we cannot turn a deaf ear to that. We have to make sure that we have a program that works for everybody in our community, and this program clearly doesn't. And so I support the recommendation to eliminate the current program, but then I think the second part of the recommendation for me is less about saying, go MVLA, figure out how to meet these needs. But we're here to work with you in developing and identifying, an alternate to the current SRO program.
Vice Mayor, I'd like to echo what you and Councilmember Bruins are saying. It seems to me that we need to take an action tonight that basically formally informs the high school board of trustees that we need a redefinition, a rethinking of the nature of our on-campus services prior to the beginning of the 21-22 school year. We need to have, I would say, the staffs look at, and I mean the staffs of both the city and the school district, look at what the needs are and how those can best be delivered, needs that we can fulfill. Because some of what has been discussed, for example, the mental health needs, are not something we provide, right? So we need to look at what are the elements of the program, because although I understood the flow chart that was presented, or the graphic that was presented, I would bet that if this district were providing that graphic, they wouldn't have crossed all those items out. They might have even had a different list. And so I think it really behooves our two staffs to get together and look at all the information provided by the task force, their deliberations, the draft reports, all the other documents that were put together. And they may need to go get some more information, but in the end, it should conclude, and I think this is important, it should conclude with a joint public meeting between the Board of Trustees and our City Council to agree on the scope and details of those service provisions memorialized in a memorandum of understanding.
I would just say that we have yet to hear from the school district on this matter, and I think that has led to a lot of uncertainty. And so I am encouraged that maybe we can get to some sort of MOU, because we do have some sort of service agreement with these officers, with the school districts, but we have not heard yet. And I just, as the city attorney, I would welcome to reach out to the school district's attorneys and revisit some of these MOUs, but I think there's still going to have to be some sort of public process before we even look at these agreements again. But
Yeah,
I don't know what we can do at this point, because we have yet to hear back from the school district. So
City Attorney Houston, we did hear from the school district. We had the superintendent and the Los Altos High School principal speak at the task force meeting. And so we have their input. I agree with you. If we decide as a council tonight to eliminate the SRO program, they're a key stakeholder here. We would have to go back to them and say, council voted to do this. How do you, is it a transition process? What does that look like? But I agree with you. We can't just decide end the SRO program and not confer with the key stakeholder to ensure there's no negative impact or gaps.
Right.
So that's my thinking on the approach.
And that's why I think what we, at the most, what we can do is agree that we're going to inform the board that we need a rework of this. We need a reconsideration, a reevaluation, make our staff available to work with their staff. But I cannot tonight support just unilaterally saying we're going to stop doing the SRO and end of story. I can't support that.
I will just say that before we had the task force meetings, we had not heard from the school district. So I'm glad that they did come to the task force, because before we started the task force, we were grappling with this SRO issue. And then, so I'm happy to hear that they at least attended the task force meetings.
What we heard tonight from the report from the task force was that the school district's perception of the program is totally at odds with the task force's majority assessment of the program. So we may have heard from, but there was no meeting of the minds.
So is the elimination, so if we look at elimination, is that
Speak at some point too, please, being the mayor. To keep this conversation going, I'd like to jump in here as well. I think I agree generally with what's being said, although I do believe that we should eliminate the SRO program. I also think that it's not just staff to staff. I think we should get the council. We had talked about having an MVLA council task force put together, and I think we should do that. We have one for the LASD. We have one for CUSD. We've never put one together for MVLA, but clearly it's time to do that. So I think from a policy perspective, it needs to be, a couple members of the council and a couple members of the MVLA board to discuss that. So I would put that in as well. But I think we need to tell them we're not going to do the SRO program anymore. I don't think it should be wishy-washy. We're not going to do it anymore. It will elevate it in their, bring it to a higher level of interest to them if we do that. And I think, the testimony we received, to me, is very compelling that we need to take that step. Go ahead, Jeannie.
So first, in terms of clarification, when we talk about eliminating it, are we talking about, if we vote on that tonight, does that mean tomorrow we stop doing it? Or does or does it mean that, because for me, I wanted a time frame on this, and it's either we work together through this joint school city thing, with this being probably the one and only topic right now, because this one is critical as far as I'm concerned. Okay, but we need to come to an agreement before the start of the next school year or something. Give me a deadline to it, right? They're busy because of COVID affecting them more in a different way than it affects us, right? Because they're educating students. So they might not have all of the cycles that we might have on this, but we need to get them a deadline, okay?
I could make a motion, Jeannie.
And then when I got the floor, I want to make sure, because I did just myself got a text message from a member of the public that I was not apparently clear on what I was saying. I have heard loud and clear. Teachers have come out and talked with us. Students have come out and talked. My disappointment, though, is with even a one negative encounter is not acceptable, okay? And as an adult, if you are aware of a negative encounter, something should have been done right then and there. Something should have either gone to Wynn Satterwhite, it should have come to the chief, it could have come to the city manager. If you see something, say something. So that's what my disappointment is. I appreciate everybody coming out now, but the time you also need to do it in the moment. And again, that was what I was trying to get at. I've heard what's happened, but that's the message. That's where my disappointment was. So
I have a question.
And I have a motion, Mayor.
Wait. I have a question because it's for the city attorney. So when we say we have a service agreement, can we just say, okay, we're going to get rid of these SROs, but are we breaching our agreement? That's my concern.
So my motion would have addressed that, Councilmember Liang.
I'm
Okay.
not sure what the termination period is. Thank you.
Go ahead, Lisa, with the motion, please.
So I move that we eliminate the SRO program at Los Altos High School and direct staff to inform the MVLA administration and determine what process to implement to conduct that elimination, and direct staff to inform the school district that we're ready to be partners with them in developing an alternate to the current SRO program.
Can I make a
What was the frame for that? By the end of the year, eliminate the SRO program by the end of this school year?
That could be the target date. That's why the transition has to be discussed with MVLA, because I don't know what that looks like.
Okay.
as soon as possible. Yeah.
Could you read it again, please?
If I do everything from memory.
Oh, write it down.
So move to eliminate the SRO program at Los Altos High School and direct staff to inform the MVLA administration of this recommendation and to start the transition process to eliminate the SRO program. And direct staff to inform the school district that we're ready to be partners with them in developing an alternate to the current SRO program.
Can I add some? I'd second it. I'd like to add something to that, which would also be to set up the MVLA City Council task force to work on this policy.
I accept that friendly amendment.
Okay. Can we say eliminate the program preferably at the end of this academic year? Or
No later than, because if it can be eliminated earlier, that's
No, I would support the end of the school year, and that we also set a target of a replacement program for the beginning of the next school year.
Okay.
Yeah, if there is a different program to try and get it in place for the next year.
Place for the new
I
school year.
accept both friendly amendments.
Okay. Okay. Are we ready for a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Bruins,
Aye.
Councilmember Neander,
Yes.
Councilmember Lee Ng,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fliger,
Yes.
and Mayor Pepper.
Yeah.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Great. Thank you. So we did it. Thank you, Judge Cordell. Thank you, Janine and Renee. Thank you to all of the members of the public, 42 of whom are still on at this late hour of 1:33 a.m. Tell you what, no having to go to school tomorrow. How about that? It's too late. Or work. Okay. That's great. I'm very, very glad that we were able to get through this and that we were able to make some progress. Okay.